Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie, and this is Standard Definition, the retro and nostalgia podcast here on the Boss Rush Network, where each and every Monday we come together with our friends from around the internet to talk about games, movies, shows, and other topics that make us nostalgic. I am your host for the classically animated Disney branch of Standard Definition, and we all know that we can't have a nostalgia podcast without recording episodes covering classic Disney. We will be reviewing these movies in release order, starting from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs all the way up to The Princess and the Frog in 2009. Here I am joined by two amazing people, Corey Dierig.
Oh, that's me. I thought it was like, who's here? Hi, I'm here too.
Yeah.
Let's get weird.
Yeah, and Mark Pereira.
Hello.
Okay. Before we get weird and talk about a very out there, there's nothing else, no other way to say it, a very out there movie. I just want to cover some housekeeping. Do you like what you hear? You can support us and get the show 2 weeks early by heading over to our Patreon. Yes, we have patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. But you can still subscribe on free feeds. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. It really would help us with our discoverability. You can also catch us, all our content on our YouTube channel and on bossrush.net. Also, if you didn't know already, we do have a merch store, which various logos surrounding our entire network, including Standard Definition, where we have various styles, including one with a Disney-style font. And also, Corey, would you like to, once again, shout out our wonderful producers?
Let's do it. These are our producers for the month of April, because this is when we're recording the episode. I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to the $5 tier. Remember, you can get the shows. You can get this show as well as After Dark 2 weeks early. You can get Expansion Pass and the Boss Rush podcast a week early for just $1. But if you subscribe at the $5 tier, you are subscribed to the producer tier, which means we shout you out on the podcast. Woo! So here are our current $5 tier patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the show. We have Quentin Jackson, a new patron as the time of this recording. So thank you for coming aboard. Rebecca Jewell, Adriel Munger. We appreciate both of you as well. Longer time subscribers, and my wife, Sana Derek.
That'll never get old.
I mean, I have to do it every time now. It's just, if somebody's like, stop, I can't stop, guys. It's just, I can't. So,
well, thank you, everyone, for your support, whether it is at a producer level on Patreon or just your support by listening to us. We do appreciate it. So, this episode, we are going to cover Disney's Alice in Wonderland. What is Alice in Wonderland, you ask? Well, let's try and summarize it on our own first before what I read what it's about. Does anyone want to give it a shot?
It's weird. It's like, oh my gosh, what is happening in this movie? Like, I don't even understand what is happening in this movie. So behind the scenes stuff, we're recording two episodes one night. We just did Cinderella, so spoilers. But like, was kind of rewatching it as we were doing Cinderella, just to like, what did I miss? What is this movie about?
Yeah, you missed everything.
This chick fell in a tree and she got lost with a bunch of like animal people and some twins and some weird cards that can walk around. And what's happening in this movie? Painting the roses red. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this movie's so weird. And then you have the caterpillar with the hookah that's like, you know, I don't know, whatever. And it's just, this is a weird movie. This movie is so weird. We just talked about how Cinderella is like Disney's, you know, perfect film. And then we come to this and it's like, I don't understand this movie. And like, also it has the same animation team as Peter Pan, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the next couple weeks. And like, Alice looks just like Wendy, and the painted backgrounds have so much Peter Pan vibes going on. I was so confused watching this movie. Like, it was worse than watching Dumbo almost. Like, I don't understand what's happening in this movie. And then, like, she eats the food and she gets real big, and then she gets real small, and then she gets real big again, and then there's like this duck thing living in her hair. Like,
we got him going, Mark.
what is this movie?
This is his 2-sentence description of the film.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. This movie is weird. That's my description of the film.
All right. Mark, would you like to give this a shot?
Yeah, a bunch of people smoked a lot of stuff and tried to make a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's also really great. And for me, I would just say everything that's nonsense makes sense in this movie. So, but what really is Alice in Wonderland? Join Alice as she chases the White Rabbit and journeys into a topsy-turvy world that gets curiouser and curiouser as her fantastical adventures unfold. Meet the Mad Hatter, March Hare, Tweedledee and Tweedledum, the Cheshire Cat, the Queen of Hearts, and more unforgettable, certainly they're unforgettable, characters, all set against a backdrop of an awe-inspiring splendor. That is a different way to describe it.
Yeah.
I want to jump into trivia first.
Oh boy.
Based off of, again, characters that I kind of was terrified as a kid, but now find them just, I don't know, mesmerizing in a oddly humorous way. When Tweedledee and Tweedledum are introducing themselves, they suggest some things they could do. Which one is not one of those things? A, freeze tag. B, button, who's got the button? C, hide and seek, or D, a battle?
Button. I remember them like fighting each other, but I don't know if that was one of the choices. I think they just end up fighting each other. Hide and seek is one, I think. I don't know. I don't remember.
Mark, do you have an inkling?
I know it's not button, who's got the button, because there's like, I have a weird brain, and so like little sound bites get stuck in my head, and so button, who's got the button?
The button
is
has
been in my head since the first time I've seen it. So I know it's not that, and I feel like they do a battle because they punch each other and they have like the squeaky noises. Like
but was that a choice though, or did they just end up fighting each other? That's the thing.
I think the answer is freeze tag.
Mark, you are just killing it. We need to keep track of these points. Yes. They offer button, who's got the button, hide and seek, and watch us do battle. Honk, honk.
Yes.
So, that's our trivia. So, Alice in Wonderland, first released in London, July 26th of 1951. It had its premiere in the U.S. in New York City on July 28th, just a couple days later, and then to the rest of the United States in September. This movie runs over an hour at 75 minutes. It had a budget of $3 million and had a total box, it's not that much, $5.9 million. Yes, so in order to understand, if we can, the bizarreness that is Alice in Wonderland, we need to look at where it came from, right? Like most of Disney's movies, there were adaptations of either fairy tales or stories in the past, and this is no exception. This movie is based off of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. I do feel like that's kind of general knowledge, but did you know Disney himself grew up reading them at school? And when he was working at a place called the Laugh-O-Gram studio in Kansas City, he did make a short cartoon series. I think it's like Newman Laugh-O-Grams. And one of the last cartoon shorts he made was called Alice's Wonderland, loosely inspired by those books. The feature had a live-action girl interacting in an animated world. However, the Laugh-O-Gram went bankrupt and the film was never released to the public. Thankfully, Disney brought the idea with him when he set out to Hollywood, and in 1933, he considered making it a feature-length animated and live-action version of Alice, but this was scrapped in favor of Snow White. So can you imagine if this came out as the first Disney movie.
Might have been better.
Yeah. No, I think Disney would have been if Alice in Wonderland came out
was
first.
The first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and just imagine it would have been like a live actress in an animated. I mean, like that's happened much later, right? Like we got.
I mean, like Mary Poppins was that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
Roger Rabbit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like Disney really went through that phase. Like it was Mary Poppins, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. What was the other one? There was another one that was like pretty popular around that time too. But it was just kind of like that era of Disney where they finally kind of felt like the technology was ready, and you know.
Yeah, but this history helps, right? Because at first I was like, you know, you came out with this masterpiece Cinderella where you finally mastered the formulas, like Corey said, and then Alice comes out, and now it makes sense that technically Walt Disney kind of always wanted to produce Alice in Wonderland, but it just took some time, and then it just released. So as far as reception, although it's considered one of the best animated films of Disney's day, the initial reviews were actually pretty negative. I don't know if that's surprising or not to you guys, but I pulled a sample review of the New York Times. It said, oh no, I think I'm trying to see if this is a compliment or not. Let me read this. If you are not too particular about the images of Carol and Tenniel, if you are high on Disney whimsy, and if you take a somewhat slow, uneven pace, you should find this picture entertaining. You know what? I'm just going to stop there. That's weird.
This movie, I mean, all jokes aside, like this movie goes a lot of places, and like I think it's so iconic because it is weird, right? Especially, I think it's iconic because, I mean, like Dumbo, right? You think of what's iconic about Dumbo, right? It's Dumbo flying, but he doesn't fly until like the very last scene of the movie, you know? And so right. You think of Alice, and you think of, like, the first thing I think of Alice in Wonderland is a Mad Tea Party. That happens, it's only like a 5-minute scene, you know?
Right.
And you think of the Mad Hatter and the Cheshire Cat. Well, they're not in it very much. Like, all the iconic things you think of, right? They're just, I don't know. To me, this movie, watching it, reminds me of the way we remember Dumbo, in a way, you know?
Well, you know, what might have played a part into kind of, I mean, in general, Lewis Carroll's, you know, all the stuff that he's basing it off is already kind of wacky and out there. Mm-hmm. But Disney kind of, admitted that he considered the lukewarm reception in part by having too many cooks in the kitchen. I read that he had about 5 directors on this project. Mm-hmm. So I feel like if you have too many people trying to make decisions, things can kind of seem a little scatterbrained, which probably didn't help a story that is already kind of complex, so to speak.
Yeah.
But with all that, the film was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Scoring of a Musical Picture, but they lost to An American in Paris. I can't wait to hear what Mark has to say about this, but there have been other adaptations, like the live-action Alice in Wonderland in 2010, starring Mia Wasikowska and, of course, Johnny Depp, by Tim Burton, that also had a sequel of Alice Through the Looking Glass in 2016. They had, mixed to negative reviews. Am I right? So, Mark.
Yeah, I watched, I saw the original, or the Alice, the first one, when it came out, but I had not seen Alice Through the Looking Glass until this watch through. There's a lot. They're pretty good. I enjoyed both of them. Surprisingly, I think I enjoyed the second one more than the first one. The second one kind of gave a little bit more context to the animated film. But what's interesting about these movies is they're really sequels to the animated movie. So the animated movie is the first film. The live action quote unquote remake is not a remake. It's a sequel to the animated film. And so that was a really interesting kind of spin on this whole craze of live action remakes of Disney films. And then I mean, they were. This was in the era where Tim Burton was very Tim Burton, and Johnny Depp was very Johnny Depp, and people were tired of it, and so, I mean, it had interesting things in it. I like I said, I liked Through the Looking Glass a little bit more than I liked Alice in Wonderland. There's some interesting parts, like you find out why the Red Queen doesn't like white roses, and you find out why the Mad Hatter and the March Hare were sitting at the tea party. Basically, one of the main characters in the second film is time. It's a personification of time, and so he, as a punishment to the Mad Hatter, freezes him to a minute before tea time until Alice comes back, because it's a time travel movie, and so they're like frozen in time until Alice shows up for the tea party. So it gives a little bit more context to what happens in the animated film, and they're pretty imaginative and pretty fun to watch. I mean, they're not anywhere near some of the better live action adaptations, but they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That's enough to convince me to watch it. Sorry, Corey. Yeah. Because, and I know it sounds like a stupid reason not to watch a movie, but Johnny Depp's character just looked so creepy. I didn't want to watch it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's very Johnny Depp, and not in necessarily a good way in these movies. But I mean, Helena Bonham Carter's in it. She's the Red Queen, and I'm a big fan of hers. And Alan Rickman is in it. And,
yeah, he's the caterpillar, I think, right?
Yeah, he is the caterpillar. And so I don't know. I find it really interesting that it's a sequel to the animated movie. I thought that's a really clever concept. So they're pretty good movies. Okay. And there's also a TV show that my kids are super into right now. I have 4-year-old twins, but it's Alice's Wonderland Cafe or something like that.
Oh.
She is running a bakery in Wonderland. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like Mark, I think the second live act it's been a long time since I've seen them. I didn't do the whole rewatch like Mark did because I'm a terrible co-host, but I do remember liking the second one better, and I think it's because Tim Burton wasn't involved in the second one. It was Sam Raimi, and like Sam Raimi gets a lot more out of his characters in terms of like the depth, I feel like, and actually making the characters' backstories kind of compelling. And I think that's why it was better. So that was just my little 2 cents on that second.
Yeah, I think. I mean, yeah, like I said, I think. I think every once in a while, actors and directors need to take a break. Like I think Christopher Nolan is a little bit in that phase right now. You just get so into this same thing that you do every time, and so I think this was right around the time where, I mean, how many weirdos can Johnny Depp play, and how many black and white striped characters can Tim Burton have? So,
well, let me tell you, Jack Sparrow, Mad Hatter, Willy Wonka. Who else was he playing? There was one other one at the time that he played, and everybody was like, Johnny Depp.
Well, he was also in, but he wasn't silly, but it was, and I actually like this movie. He was the barber on Fleet Street.
Right, Sweeney Todd.
Yeah.
Sweeney Todd. Oh, but also Edward Scissorhands, but that's older.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think Sweeney Todd was the other movie that came out around this time.
Which is unfortunate, because believe it or not, I actually had a strong affinity to that movie. I don't know why I really liked it. Maybe I just liked the music part. So
I just watched that actually a couple weeks ago, and it's it's dark, but it's good.
Yeah. All right. Excuse me. So I guess one little tidbit before we jump into reviewing the characters. Disney wanted to retain Carol's imaginative poems, and over 30 potential songs were written for this film. Some key standout songs, Alice in Wonderland, the I'm Late song, which I don't really think of it as a song, but The Walrus and the Carpenter, which is such a bizarre story, but I love that song. It gets stuck in my head. The Unbirthday song is very, very, very famous, as well as Painting the Roses Red.
Yeah, the Tea Party song I think that's the most iconic, at least to me, because I don't know if you guys know this, but I've gone to Disney World a lot. I'm sure I've mentioned it on this podcast. But like, when you go to Disney World and you enter Fantasyland and you go to the teacups, this is literally the only song that's ever playing at the teacups is the Unbirthday song. And like, to me, that song just reminds me of walking from Fantasyland over to Tomorrowland at Disney World, because like that's where the teacups are, and you can still, like, when you walk by the Tomorrowland Speedway, which is kind of like right across from the teacups, like when I hear this song, all I hear are like these nasty like kids motor cars drive by, right, as I hear this song. It just reminds me of all these Disney World memories. It's weird, like, hearing these songs where they're properly supposed to be. Because like when we did the Cinderella, something I didn't really bring up during that either, but like the Sing Sweet Nightingale and Cinderella, like the music of those songs play when you are kind of walking around the castle area.
That's cool.
And like they're not singing, but you can hear the music, and like that reminds me of like, oh well, you can't really walk through the castle except at night anymore, because there's a stage show and they have to tear down and set up for the stage show. And so like you can only really walk through the castle in the morning or at night before the fireworks or after the fireworks. And like I just remember hearing those songs as you walk through the castle, and like the mosaics on one side are Cinderella, but then as you make your way towards and through Fantasyland, you start seeing like the weird vines from Alice in Wonderland, and then like, kind of like the red path that the dog kind of sweeps up. You kind of see it kind of weave through the Winnie the Pooh thing and lead into the teacups. And so like there's all this kind of connective tissue through these movies that kind of remind me a lot of childhood memories. And that's the one thing I can say about Alice in Wonderland is like the music is kind of really memorable for me for that reason.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been interesting in this rewatch. You kind of watch Disney like with each new movie like start to hone different elements of their craft. And so like Snow White was like, really focused on animation, obviously. And then, Pinocchio, they really focused on scope by broadening the scope and having different locations and different things happening on screen. Cinderella was really focused on that formula, that Disney formula that we talked about in the last episode of that true Disney princess formula that has worked so well for them. And for Alice in Wonderland, I feel Disney really focused on music, not just the score, but the songs as well. And I think that this one is the first movie where there's been good songs in other movies, but they've been like little snippets of songs here and there. And this is the first one where music really is at the forefront of the movie, where I would be like, I'd like to buy that album. With the other ones, not necessarily, but with this one, it's like, I agree. The music really is a standout for me.
Yep. I'm glad you brought up is Disney World, Disneyland. I always confuse the two, but as much as Alice in Wonderland the movie definitely doesn't stick out as like my top whatever Disney movies, but as far as Disney rides, Teacup is just so iconic. It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can just jump right into the characters, and there's quite a lot of them, so let's just kind of have at it and just discuss what we end up discussing. Anyone want to take a crack at it?
I mean, I guess we could start with Alice, right? I mean, she's just kind of like this unassuming girl kind of having a picnic by herself kind of thing at the beginning, right? And then
I think her mom or her teacher...
tutor or something.
Was trying to read to her, and she's not paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, right. But like essentially, she's just kind of like by herself in her own little world, and I guess that's why Wonderland exists, right? Is like it's her own little world that she gets lost in, and then it kind of feels like she gets stuck in her own world, and I don't know. It kind of like it feels like I I don't really know how to describe it, but it just feels like this movie is trying to tell you something of like you can't be stuck in your own world all the time because you'll get lost in it, and you gotta, I don't know, almost like, again, bringing up Peter Pan, like you gotta kind of grow up at some point almost. And I don't know, this movie has a lot of weird Peter Pan vibes to me in a weird way. And I know we kind of talked about how Alice kind of looks like Wendy, and like the animation team is the same and all that stuff, but like it just feels that way to me. Like Wonderland kind of feels like Neverland in a weird way, in a different way.
Yeah, I mean, they're both, characters from our world going to very fantastical worlds that may or may not exist, right? Might just are probably in their head. Mm-hmm. And so I see the similarities for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, in the beginning when she sings, I remember distinctly a line about like how she would sit amongst the flowers talking with them for hours, which when she gets to Wonderland, that's one of the things that happens. And again, pre-Wonderland, she says, like, she was speaking to her cat, Dinah, like, if I had my own way, like, nothing would make sense, everything would be nonsense. And when she goes to Wonderland where things were absolutely nonsense, she grows to, like, not like it. It's almost like she matures while she's in Wonderland, realizing, oh, this is nonsense. Yeah. Like,
there's a reason why there's rules and, guidelines to follow and things you have to pay attention to, right? It's, yeah.
I think that's the part where she starts, well, she cries a couple times in the movie, but when she comes to that realization, it's when she got lost and there's this like dog with a broom for a head, and he sweeps her path out like away, so she literally has no sense of direction. I'll admit, as a kid, I was spooked. I was like, ooh, it's so dark, and I would be freaked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we try to get like really, intellectual or whatever about it, like I feel like it's an allegory for growing up, and not. And you all said this, but like, the process of maturing, like wanting to be, every kid wants to grow up, but then realizing, I think the definition of being a grown up is realizing that you're a grown up and not wanting that anymore. Right. And so, and how like, so I just think that there's something there for that, but it's a little disjointed and a little discombobulating. The movie's not really woven together that well. It's kind of like, it's very episodic. It's very like a bunch of just different episodes strung together that don't really have anything to do with each other. But yeah,
I agree. And I think I had read this doing my research, but it's not in my notes, but it stuck in my head. The things that she eats, that where she gets bigger or smaller. Side note, when I watched it, I used to always like imagine like me eating something would make me grow or shrink because it's cool. But I think it plays to that allegory, Mark, because she's trying to figure out how much is too much, and she tends to either overgrow or shrink too much, and that's part of growing up. You need to figure out like how to adjust according to what's appropriate, and she's just kind of, it's growing pains, no pun intended.
Right
Yeah I always thought that scene was weird though. the food scene where she has to like grow to grab the key or whatever. It's just
that sense of frustration. Can I just tell you, as an adult, and the doorknob's like, well, why'd you leave it up there? I'm like,
I know.
But like, isn't that what being an adult is like? Like, you have to deposit a check, so then you go into your app to deposit the check, but you can't remember your password, and your password's in another room in the house, and then you go there and that's put somewhere. It's like everything you do is like 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. And so I think it's pretty like relatable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I just went through that today. I had to deposit a check.
I was going to say, that sounds very specific, dude.
Yeah.
It was very specific to today. But going back to characters, I mean, by far my favorite, my absolute favorite character is the Mad Hatter. I love, and that's a famous actor. He's been in a lot of live action things, the actor who voices him. And I love that they used his like his mannerisms. Like he sticks out his tongue when he talks, and he's like mustard.
It's
and I love everything about that character.
Isn't that the actor from Mary Poppins when they're like in the house where he's floating, where they're floating?
I Love to Laugh.
Yeah.
And I feel like he was in some like, classic sitcom or something. Like he's been in a ton of other stuff, but I love the Mad Hatter. I love everything about the tea scene. I love that whole thing.
Yeah, I love the creative ideas of how there's the different tea cups and methods. Like one like doesn't have a spout and he has to crack it like an egg.
Right.
Like, those are just so like distracting while they're talking. I'm like, oh, look at this one. This one like goes through all the different cups and there's a cup at the bottom.
But what's interesting is in Alice Through the Looking Glass, the reason why, like, it's silly in the animated film, and it's like all these different things that they try to pour the tea, but they never drink tea, and it's because they've been cursed to not be able to have tea time until Alice comes and visits them. And so all these things that they're doing, they've been sitting there for years and years and years waiting for Alice to show up so that they can actually have tea. And so the cutting the tea in half and doing all the different things, it's all part. It's kind of interesting that it's explained in the sequel.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I find the Mad Hatter just very, very lovable. Just so silly. I love his mannerisms. Later on, when he gets called up as a witness at the trial, he was also very funny there. There's just something very lovable about him. Again, I don't know if it's just because he's dopey, but
You know what's interesting? I'm not a. Don't get mad at me for saying this, but I'm not a huge.
Well, I'm already mad.
I'm not a huge fan of Seinfeld.
I don't understand Seinfeld either. It's fine.
It's all right. Yeah, you're in good company, actually.
Okay, great. But this movie, and I haven't actually watched a ton of Seinfeld, but I'm that kind of person that, like, if I start something and don't finish it, I'll read up on how it ends. Like, I'll just kind of keep tabs on it. I don't know why. And so this movie reminded me a lot of Seinfeld, where there's a bunch of things that happen that don't mean anything, and then the very end is this trial, which the series finale of Seinfeld, they're on trial, and every minor character from the 10 years of the show come back in and like are giving their testimony as to how the 4 characters are really horrible people. And so this movie kind of reminded me of that, because you've got all these disjointed stories that don't have anything to do with each other, and then Alice is on trial, and then all these characters show back up. And so I thought, I don't think that means anything, but I just thought that was pretty interesting.
Oh, I love that. I'll admit, that's pretty clever. That's cool. Let's see. Maybe we'll talk about Tweedledum and Tweedledee real quick, just because, again, I don't know. I kind of like them now. Like I said, they creeped me out when I was a kid, but now I just think they're absolutely ridiculous with the honking and the beeping, and I just love the performance of the Walrus and the Carpenter. Again, just something that just, but it's Walrus and the Carpenter. They find a bunch of oysters. The Walrus is very conniving. And then he ends up eating the oysters before the Carpenter could get to him, and then the Carpenter's pissed off. And then that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's so weird. But that's what I mean though. Like, you go from that to you go from like her falling down the rabbit hole, right, to the door, to that scene, to Tweedledee and Tweedledum, to what was the next scene? Was it the tea party, or was it
tea party or the rabbit's house?
It was Rabbit's house, and then the tea party, and it's like, that's what I mean. Like, what is this movie about? And like that the house scene always freaked me out when I was little, right? Because like she literally grows through the house, but then you're like, how is her eye sticking through the top of the roof? Where's the floor? Where's the structure in this house? Where are the support beams? Is she just like gonna break this house now?
That poor lizard named Bill.
Yes.
God, yeah. So I'm just throwing that out there too. But it's, I don't know. And to that point is like, man, I don't even know where to go from here. And then like you get to the point where she actually walks through the tree to go to the castle or whatever, and she has to walk through the maze, and she's kind of jumping, and the cards are painting the roses red, and then the queen comes out and sees that they missed like half a one or whatever, and she gets really angry. And then like the queen is like this big imposing figure, and then the king is just like this small kind of like
and the king
Weasley guy, yeah. So I don't know. I am actually not a fan of the way this movie is animated. I don't know why. I think if I would have watched this before Cinderella, it wouldn't have bothered me as much. But like Cinderella is so eloquently animated. Everything is so perfect, right? We talked a lot about the transformation of the dress, and it's just so exquisitely animated. And you get here, and like the scene that I really noticed it, like the style doesn't really bother me a whole lot. Like it doesn't do anything for me. But the thing that really bothered me is when you get to the hedge maze, and like you see the hedges, and it just looks like a piece of construction paper with some gray scribbles on it, as the leaves. And like it really bothered me. Especially since, like, we watched Cinderella and you look at the animation of Bambi and how perfect those landscapes and stuff are. And, like, I get that this is going for a particular style, but that just kind of looked like either they were rushing it. It just looked kind of, I don't want to use the word lazy because that's not the right term, but it just kind of looked like a kid did it, And that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, I feel like... like Disney goes through this like one good year, one bad year, one good year, one bad year, one good year, one bad year kind of pattern where like there's clearly one film that they spend all their time and attention on, and then there's like, well, we got to keep the lights on, so here's the second film. And I think that Pixar kind of has fallen into that rut a little bit where they're now releasing 2 movies a year, and one is like really great and one is just kind of okay. And so I feel like Cinderella was the film that they were all pouring their heart and soul into, and Alice in Wonderland wasn't. But there's so many of the individual parts of Alice in Wonderland are fun to watch and are really kind of joyful little stories, right? Little vignettes. But the sum altogether, it's not really telling a cohesive story. So it really falls apart when you try to connect everything together. But the individual pieces, I think, are much better than the gathered together sum.
Yeah.
I would say overall, like the cast of characters, I mean, there's like a tiny handful. Like we're already kind of struggling to really pick things to talk about, like not for lack of content, but for example, when I mentioned Tweedledee and Tweedledum, like it lasted 30 seconds because I realized, there's actually really nothing to them. If anything, I appreciate more is as far as character wise, like I just like the random creativity of the things that are in Wonderland. Like what do you call it, the moan rats or something? These little like legs with the eyeballs, they were so cute. Or like the ducks that were actually horns or something. Like if you stepped on them, they went honk.
Or like or like when all the little forest creatures started disappearing, right? You had like the shovel and the scissors and the eyeglasses and stuff, and they weren't like animals. They were actually like probably things that she recognized from her real life that kind of came alive at some point, Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I like those just because they were creative. Like, I would have never come up with that. But as far as, a strong cast of characters, I mean, what else? We got the caterpillar, who was an enigma and had a terrible temper. The Cheshire Cat, which gives me creeped out vibes. I'm kind of like, is there something more sinister about this Cheshire Cat than... Like, he creeps me out more than, like, me being terrified of the Queen. The Queen just comes out as, like, just a very angry, selfish person that's almost laughable. So... Yeah.
It's super laughable. You look at... I hate to keep bringing up Cinderella because we just did that episode, but, like, you look at the evil stepmother, like, there are, whether they're deep layers or not, there are layers to that character in terms of she has a plan. She's very kind of calm and collected and manipulative and kind of, does her thing in a way that's kind of planned. Whereas, like you said, Stephanie, the queen is very just over the top, angry. I'm just going to yell real loud and be kind of
spoiled brat.
Stupid. Like, I don't like the character at all. I think the queen is a terrible character. I think that the Cheshire Cat is kind of a way better character. I think that there are better characters that they could have utilized more in this movie. So I just don't understand this movie, and I know I keep coming back to that, but like I just don't understand this movie. I think the shock value of how weird it is. There are good moments in this movie, right? Like Mark brought up the tea party, like that's a cool scene. But like, I wonder if this movie just got recognition because of how weird it was, especially for the time,
right?
And not necessarily because of the good animation or the storytelling or whatnot.
I don't think it will be that random because it is pertaining to Alice in Wonderland. But it does remind me of the level in Kingdom Hearts because it was in the first Kingdom Hearts. I don't recall if it was in the second, and I didn't even get past the first level of the third. But I distinctly remember that level in the first Kingdom Hearts, and it was an early level too, if not the first world.
I think it was the second.
Second?
If it's been a while since I played them. I'm actually planning a playthrough of these games because of Kingdom Hearts 4. I'm actually I've kind of decided.
Like, are you going to stream it?
I don't know if I have time, but I mean, judging by your face, I guess I should.
Well, I'm just saying if you do, I'm on board with that because that's amazing. Okay.
Because I bought the entire collection on Xbox. I was going to buy it for Switch, but cloud versions. So yeah, I remember the level you're talking about. And it was actually kind of like one of the first. That level made me buy the strategy guide for the game.
I don't know. It was a very memorable level. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. That's why I wanted to bring it up. It's a memorable movie. I do think the sound bites and the music is kind of, I don't know, the strength, I guess, of this movie. Which I guess we're now talking about general impressions of the film. I don't know if we want to move on with that. As far as rating the villain, I would just assume that the queen is the default villain here, right? Or is this just like
I mean, yeah, I would say so. There isn't really another villain per se, is there? I mean,
not really. The Cheshire Cat's just mischievous.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would say the queen's like a 2 out of 10. No offense.
Oh, she's just the worst, and not in a good way.
All right. Well, I think we might have covered, favorite moments, and we kind of touched upon moments we didn't like, but is there anything else we want to talk about with this movie?
We didn't really talk about the White Rabbit at all.
Oh, that's kind of important. Let's do that.
Yeah. Just because he kind of kicks off this whole thing, right, and kind of even almost wraps up the thing in a way. He's strange. But
part of me wonders, am I too stupid? I feel that he has to represent something. I'm like, am I missing, because he's like Corey said, he's the catalyst to everything. He's always late for something. He's consistently throughout weaving in and out of the story. He's like the one constant, right? That he's there. But I can't really find a meaning to him.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
No, I feel like there's something there. Like there's this world that Alice is supposed to be living in, where she's proper and learning history and all of that, and there's this world that's like fantastical that Alice thinks she wants, but makes no sense and realizes she doesn't really want. But then there's this thread of time weaving through it where it's like, hurry up, you're late, hurry up, you're late, hurry up, you're late, and I feel like there's something that there's something there with those three things. Like, this is obviously a movie about maturing and going from being a kid to being an adult, and I don't know, you have to find the right time to do that, or the right balance between whimsy and being mature or something. I think that I can't really put it together, but I think that there's something there with that for sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think he is maybe he represents stress and how like time is running out as like almost like a child or trying to grow up, like going back to that metaphor of like growing up or maturing as a person,
True. Children always seem to be in a rush to grow up, and I constantly tell my son, not in these words, but like growing up stinks. Like, don't trust me on this one. You do not. Take your time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of think maybe that's what he represents, and falling down that rabbit hole of worrying about, like, you fall down the rabbit hole, you're so worried about growing up where you just don't enjoy being young to an extent, maybe. And, like, by the time she gets out,
she's a new person.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think at the end of this movie, she just picks up the cat and walks back to the house or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much she really learned.
Yeah.
No, I like that. I think we're onto something here.
Yeah.
And speaking of either things or scenes we forgot to talk about, I feel like it's worth talking about because of the musical number is when she meets the flowers. Because again, I brought it up at the top of the episode where that's what she initially was singing about before she entered Wonderland. I like the cool iterations of each type of flower, like the dandelions or lion-like in personality or something. Obviously, they're very catty and call her a weed. But the song Golden Afternoon, I believe it's what it's called, is very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Any closing thoughts or statements? Because I think we're kind of... This seems like there's not terribly much to talk about. Offense to Alice.
Yeah. I do think... Every time the cards chase her out of the maze, like I feel like she's just playing a game of solitaire. Like, when you're playing solitaire on your computer, all the cards just kind of like...
Yeah.
But I don't really have anything else to say. I just think this movie is really weird, and I can't wait to see where we rank this movie, because...
Yeah. I am too. Maybe we can get to it, because what I will say is I enjoyed watching Alice in Wonderland more so now than as a kid. So I will say it has improved in my mind in comparison to when I saw it, heck, like 25 years ago or however long I saw it. But in comparison to the rest, though, I'm not sure. I can say easily definitely won't top Cinderella for sure. But now I'm looking at the list. So our current definitive ranking is Cinderella sitting at the top at number 1, followed by Pinocchio, Bambi, Snow White, and then poor little Dumbo. But I don't know. Like, maybe we can at least rule out the top and the bottom. I don't think it's when I say as bad as Dumbo, I'm not saying Dumbo is bad. I still like Alice in Wonderland.
Was bad.
Okay. Okay, it definitely beats Dumbo, right? Because I feel we can at least... Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as where it is
so what was next? What was...
So, Cinderella, Pinocchio, Bambi, Snow White, Dumbo.
Oh, Snow White's way better than this. I
agree.
I don't think you can put it higher than Snow White.
No, I think it is between Snow White and Dumbo.
Yeah. I think this movie is better than Dumbo, but like it's still... I think when all is said and done, which shocks me because I was actually like really optimistic going into Alice in Wonderland. I'm like, okay, this is where Disney's going to start experimenting with stuff, and they're going to try something new and different. And a lot of people really like Alice in Wonderland for some reason, and I'm excited. And like going in, I remember liking Alice in Wonderland for the most part, right? Like it's probably been like 20 years since I watched it, but like I remember liking Alice in Wonderland in terms of like conceptually for a long time. And Disney experimented and it just did not work this time.
Yeah.
So
any closing remarks from you, Mark?
Yeah. No, I mean I don't think Dumbo is a bad film. I just think I mean, I said this before, I said this earlier, but like I feel like each of these movies was pioneered something for Disney, and I think that Alice in Wonderland should be known for really pioneering music for Disney. Mm-hmm. So, and again, I'm really bad at expressions. I don't really know how to say this expression, but like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, or is not greater than the sum of its parts, or whatever that expression is. But if you look at the movie as like individual episodes, I feel like they're really enjoyable to watch. And each individual self-contained episode is really a fun little time, but the whole movie together just doesn't really go together. It's not really cohesive. So I think it fits perfectly between Snow White and Dumbo. I think there are great things about the movie, but I think that there are also some not so great things about the movie too.
Yeah. Right. I gotta agree. So I say that wraps up Alice in Wonderland, and I didn't say this when we recorded Cinderella not too long ago, but kind of looking in the pipeline, next we will be talking about Peter Pan. And just look at the next two after that is Lady and the Tramp and Sleeping Beauty, which now that we've talked about Cinderella and like progressing, I'm almost kind of shocked that Sleeping Beauty is still a couple movies away. I don't know why. I kind of envision that as a much older movie. But
I always thought Cinderella was Sleeping Beauty came out before Cinderella.
I know, I did too. I was always of that impression.
Right.
But so it's Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp,
Sleeping Beauty.
Okay. So we recently, we recently watched Sleeping Beauty because my daughter is obsessed with Aurora for some reason. She even has a baby Aurora doll that she takes with her everywhere, like literally everywhere. This thing is trashed. Like its hair is like you need to like wash its hair, and you probably should just like replace it. But like it's her favorite toy. She carries it everywhere, even when she plays with her other toys. This doll plays with their toys with her. And so, like, there's going to be a special bias to Sleeping Beauty for me, but also I think that movie is underrated, personally.
I'm looking forward to seeing it because I remember not liking it and thinking it was boring. So I haven't seen it in a long time, and so I'm excited to see it again because I've been really surprised with these movies this time around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I haven't watched Peter Pan since I was little, and Peter Pan was my favorite when I was little. And I used to wear a Peter Pan costume like in the summertime because I loved Peter Pan. So after watching Alice in Wonderland and knowing that it's the same animation team and style and stuff, I'm very concerned that my childhood is going to be shattered.
Now, hopefully there'll be enough time between now and then for you to experience it by itself.
Yeah.
The preview I'll give about kind of my history with Peter Pan is after that movie, I was that stupid idiot kid that thought I could fly with pixie dust that I found dirt on the ground, and I had a couple of bruises because of that.
Yeah, I used to jump off the furniture and hurt myself. So.
All right. What a great episode. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. Let's wrap it up. Mark, would you like to tell everyone where people can find you?
Yeah, I am the entertainment lead at Boss Rush. Y'all make fun of me for not saying that. So you can find me over at bossrush.net, doing all things movies and TV shows and sometimes video games if I ever have time to play them. And you can find me on Twitter at Accepted Pereira, and then you can find me on the other standard definition where we're going through the MCU films.
All right, Corey, where can people find you?
You can find me at I am Corey HG on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me hosting the Boss Rush podcast. You can also find me on Nintendo Power Block, After Dark, Standard Def for MCU. We are also wrapping up Indiana Jones, which you can see, and
Nice. Yeah, I'm actually listening through Last Crusade right now, which is by far my favorite installment.
It's the best.
Yeah. And again, I am Stephanie. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Klimov, KLIMOV_author. I am a co-host to the Boss Rush podcast on Wednesday nights, and I am on After Dark as well. And every once in a while, I do contribute an article to bossrush.net. Hopefully more in the future. But until then, keep your, I'm trying to like pull a line from Cinderella, and it's so late in the night now I can't really do it justice, but dreams come true and all that wonderful stuff. Have a great night.
Well done.
Yeah. Bye.